apologize or get out of my house." Those were the words my son screamed at me after his wife put on an entire crying, humiliating scene right in front of me. It all started at their house. I had arrived for a family dinner that Saturday evening. Tiffany was sitting there on her ridiculously expensive sofa in her designer dress, giving me that fake smile she always has when Dominic is looking. A smile that vanishes the second his head is turned. The dinner was awkward, as usual. Tiffany talked non-stop about her rich friends, her travels, and the latest piece of jewelry Dominic had bought her, a diamond necklace that cost $8,000. She said it 3 times during dinner. $8,000. It was as if she needed me to know exactly how much it was worth, as if she needed to rub it in my face that she had the money and the power in that relationship. I tried to eat in silence. I nodded when necessary, smiled when appropriate. I did everything I could not to give her a reason for conflict. But with Tiffany, it's never enough. She always finds a way to make me the problem. "Lena, you passed the salt without me asking for it." Her voice was sharp, offended, as if I had committed an unforgivable crime. I had seen her reaching for the shaker and simply moved it closer to her. A normal gesture, a common courtesy anyone would make at a dinner table. But for Tiffany, it was the perfect excuse. "I'm sorry, I just wanted to help," I said calmly, with that infinite patience I've developed over 3 years of enduring her disdain. But she was building her case. "You always do that. You always interfere. You always butt into everything. I can't even eat dinner peacefully without you hovering over me, controlling me." Her voice rose in volume. Her eyes welled up with fake tears, tears that appeared in a second, as if she'd been holding them back, waiting for the perfect moment to use them. Dominic put his silverware down on the plate. The sound of metal against porcelain echoed in the silence that formed. I watched him turn to me with an expression I had never seen before, pure hardness, as if I were a stranger who had just insulted his wife in her own home. "Tiffany, my love, what happened?" His voice was soft when he addressed her, protective, full of concern, the same tone he used with me when he was a boy and someone bothered him at school. But now that tone was for her, and for me, only scorn remained. "Your mother constantly disrespects me. I can't take it anymore, Dominic. I can't keep pretending everything is okay when she always makes me feel like I'm not good enough for you." Tiffany brought her napkin to her eyes. She sobbed. She trembled, an act worthy of an Oscar, and my son was buying it hook, line, and sinker. I sat paralyzed in my chair, fork still in hand, watching the scene unfold like a horror movie where I was the unwanted guest. I wanted to speak, to defend myself, but the words got stuck in my throat because I knew nothing I said would matter. Dominic had already chosen his side. "Mom, you need to leave." Dominic's voice was dry, clipped, as if he were firing an employee who had made a serious mistake. "I don't want you here tonight." I stood up slowly. My legs were shaking. My heart was beating so hard I thought everyone could hear it. I picked up my purse from the chair. My hands moved on their own, as if my body knew it had to get out of there before something worse happened. "Dominic, I just wanted to help. I didn't mean to upset Tiffany." My voice came out broken, small, as if I had shrunk into something insignificant, something that no longer deserved to be in that house full of luxury and appearances. But he was already comforting his wife, hugging her, whispering things in her ear while she continued to cry against his chest. He didn't even look at me as I walked toward the door. He didn't even lift his head to see his mother leave with a broken heart. I reached the front door and opened it. The cold night air hit my face, but before I could step outside, I heard his voice behind me, firm, final, like a sentence with no appeal. "Mom, this can't keep going on. Tiffany is right. You're always interfering. You always make her uncomfortable. I need you to come next Saturday and apologize to her in front of all our guests. We're having a dinner, and you are going to apologize properly, or else don't come back at all." I turned around to look at him. There was my son, the boy I raised alone after his father left us, the boy I fed with the little I had, the boy I clothed in hand-me-downs so he could go to a decent school, The boy I worked double shifts for years. That boy was now a man looking at me as if I were a problem he needed to solve. Apologize or get out of my house. Those words fell on me like heavy, cold, immovable stones. Tiffany appeared behind him. She wasn't crying anymore. She had a small smile on her lips, almost imperceptible, but I saw it. That smile of victory, that smile that said she had won, that she had put me in my place, that she had turned me into what she always wanted me to be. Nothing. I nodded, not out of submission, not because I accepted their version of events. I nodded because at that moment I made a decision that would change everything. If they wanted me to apologize in front of their guests, I would do it, but not the way they expected, not with a bowed head and the shaky voice of a mother desperate to win back her son's love. No, I was going to that dinner. I was going to stand in front of all their rich friends and their plastic faces, and I was going to say something none of them expected to hear, something that would destroy the entire perfect facade Tiffany and Dominic had built, something that would make them regret treating me like this. All right, Dominic, I'll come on Saturday. I will apologize to Tiffany, I promise. My voice was calm, too calm, so calm that I saw a flicker of doubt in my son's eyes, but it was too late. I had accepted. I had sealed their own fate. I left that house with my back straight, without looking back, without crying, because the tears would come later, in the solitude of my apartment, in the darkness of my room, but not there, not in front of them. I wouldn't give them that pleasure. I walked down the empty street to the bus stop. The cold wind cut across my face, but I barely felt it. My mind was already working, remembering, connecting the dots, gathering pieces of a puzzle I had ignored for too long. Because I knew things Tiffany thought nobody else knew, things I had seen, heard, and kept silent about. The bus arrived. I sat in the back. I looked out the window as the city blurred past, the lights, the buildings, the people walking their normal lives. And there I was, at 67 years old, feeling everything I had worked for collapsing, but also feeling something new, something I hadn't felt in a long time, determination. Because that Saturday was not going to be the day Lena Calhoun knelt before a manipulative woman and her son blinded by money. That Saturday was going to be the day the truth came out, the day everyone saw who Tiffany Vance really was, the day my son discovered that the price of humiliating his mother was higher than he ever imagined. I reached my apartment, closed the door, stood in the dark hallway, and for the first time in 3 years, I smiled. A small, bitter, but real smile, because now I had a purpose. Now I had a plan, and nothing and no one was going to stop me. There was a time when Dominic and I were inseparable. A time when he sought me out to tell me everything, his joys, his fears, his dreams. A time when I was his favorite person in the whole world. I remember the day he was born, March 29th. I was living in Atlanta then. It was raining so hard the streets looked like rivers. I was alone in the hospital. His father had left us 2 months earlier when he found out a baby was coming. He said he wasn't ready to be a dad, that he had other plans, that I would understand someday. I never understood, but I didn't need to either. Because when they put Dominic in my arms and I saw him open those dark eyes, I knew he was everything I needed in this life. The first years were hard. I worked at a laundromat during the day and cleaned offices at night. I slept 4 hours, sometimes less, but every time I came home and saw my son smile at me from his crib, all the tiredness disappeared. All the pain was worth it because I was building something. I was giving my son a chance to have a better life than mine. Dominic was a brilliant kid. He learned to read before the other children in his class. He always brought home good grades. The teachers at Booker T. Washington Elementary told me he was special, that he had a promising future, and I believed them. I worked more hours, saving every penny, all so he could go to a good college someday. When he was 8, Dominic won a math competition at his school. I remember him running home with the certificate in his hands. Mom, I won! Look what I won!" His eyes sparkled with excitement, with pride. I hugged him so hard he laughed and told me I was squishing him, But I couldn't let go. I couldn't stop thinking that all the sacrifice was finally paying off. That night, we ate his favorite meal, pasta with tomato sauce. Nothing fancy, nothing expensive, but for us, it was a feast. We ate sitting on his living room floor because we still didn't have a table. We laughed. We talked about his dreams. He wanted to be an engineer. He wanted to build enormous bridges that connected cities. He wanted to do important things, and I told him he would achieve it, that I would do everything possible to make it happen. And I did. I worked until my body begged for rest, and even then, I kept going. Every extra dollar went into a savings account for his education. Every weekend I could take an extra shift, I took it. It didn't matter how tired I was. It didn't matter how much my back hurt or how much my hands burned from all the washing and cleaning. Dominic was my purpose, my reason for going on. When he reached adolescence, our relationship grew even stronger. He told me about the girls he liked, the problems with his friends, his insecurities. I was his confidant, his counselor, his safe harbor. Every night before bed, he would come to my room and we would stay up talking for hours, about everything, about nothing, just enjoying each other's company. "Mom, you're the strongest person I know," he told me one night when he was 15. He had just found out that one of his classmates had both parents and lived in a big house with a yard. I think he felt bad about our situation, about our small apartment, about the clothes I wore that were years old. But I took his hand and told him we didn't need more, that we were enough, that love isn't measured in square feet or new clothes. And he believed me. For many years, he believed me. We were a team, Lena and Dominic against the world. That's what we called ourselves. That's how we felt. Invincible, united, unbreakable. He got into Georgia Tech on a scholarship. I cried with happiness the day the acceptance letter arrived. I cried so much that Dominic had to hug me and tell me everything was okay, that we had done it, that his life was going to change. And it did. He studied civil engineering, just as he had always dreamed. He graduated with honors. He got a job at a major firm in Chicago. He earned good money, really good money, more money than we had ever seen put together in our entire lives. The first thing he did when he got his first paycheck was take me out to a fancy restaurant. "Mom, this is for everything you did for me." He ordered wine, an appetizer, dessert. He spent nearly $200 that night. I felt uncomfortable with so much luxury. But he was so happy, so proud to be able to treat me, so grateful. He took my hand across the table and told me he would never forget everything I had sacrificed for him. I will never forget those words, because they were the last truly honest words he ever said to me. The last words before everything changed, before she showed up. During the first few years of his professional career, Dominic came to visit me every week. Sundays were ours. We ate together, watched movies, talked about his work, his projects, his future plans. He bought me a new refrigerator when the old one broke down. He helped me pay the rent when I had a difficult month. He was attentive, affectionate, present. "Mom, when I get my own house, you're going to live with me." He promised me more than once. "You won't have to worry about anything ever again. I'm going to take care of you the way you took care of me." And I believed him. Of course I believed him. He was my son, my boy, the man I had trusted my whole life. But then she came along, Tiffany Vance. He met her at a business conference, a woman from a wealthy family, with connections, with influence, with all the money we never had. Dominic introduced her to me 3 months after they started dating. He came to my apartment with her one Saturday afternoon. "Mom, I want you to meet someone very special." His voice sounded excited, nervous, like when he was a kid and had something important to show me. I opened the door, and there she was, Tiffany, in her designer clothes, her expensive shoes, her perfume that probably cost more than my monthly rent. She looked at me with a polite smile, but her eyes assessed me in a second. They measured me, judged me, and found me insufficient. "Nice to meet you, Lena." She didn't say Mrs. Calhoun. She didn't say mother-in-law. Just Lena, as if we were friends of the same age, as if she had the right to call me by my first name from the first moment. She walked into my apartment and looked around with that expression I now know so well, that expression that says everything without saying anything, that expression that screams, how small, how old, how poor. I made coffee. I served cookies that I had bought especially for the visit. I tried to make conversation, but Tiffany answered in monosyllables, with forced smiles, with glances at her watch, as if being in my house was a torture she had to endure only because Dominic had asked her to. And Dominic didn't notice or didn't want to notice. He was so fascinated with her, so enchanted. He looked at her as if she were the most wonderful thing he had ever seen, and maybe to him she was, because Tiffany represented everything he never had: the money, the status, the entry into a world he previously only saw from the outside. After that visit, everything changed. Slowly at first, so slowly I barely noticed. Dominic started canceling our Sundays. I have dinner with Tiffany's parents. I have a work event. I have to go with Tiffany to something. There was always a reason. There was always something more important than spending time with me. The calls became less frequent, the visits more spaced out, and when he did come, he wasn't the same. He talked differently, dressed differently. Even the way he looked at me had changed, as if he was suddenly ashamed of where he came from, as if I were an uncomfortable reminder of a life he wanted to forget. But I kept waiting. I kept believing it was just a phase, that once the novelty of the relationship wore off, my son would return, that he would remember who was there when he had nothing, that he would remember who sacrificed everything so he could get where he was. How wrong I was. Tiffany entered my son's life like a silent storm. At first, everything seemed normal, even sweet. Dominic was in love, and I wanted to see him happy. That's what a mother does. She puts her son's happiness above her own doubts, above that internal voice that tells her something isn't right. The first few months after meeting her were confusing. Dominic still visited me, but it wasn't the same. He arrived in a rush, left early, always had his phone in hand, always waiting for a text from her. And when that message arrived, his face lit up in a way that hurt me, because that light wasn't for me anymore. It wasn't because he was with me. It was for her. One Sunday, he came with news. "Mom, Tiffany and I are getting married." He said it with a huge smile, with that boyish excitement he always had when something good happened to him. I should have jumped for joy. I should have hugged him. I should have told him I was happy for him. But something in my chest tightened. Something told me this wasn't going to end well. Still, I smiled. Still, I hugged him. Still, I said all the words a son expects to hear from his mother at a moment like that. Because that's what mothers do. We swallow our fears, hide our doubts, and offer support, even if we are dying inside with worry. The wedding was elegant. Too elegant. They got married at a grand ballroom that cost over $30,000 just for one night. There were flowers everywhere, imported roses, orchids, arrangements so large they looked like sculptures. The food was from a renowned chef. The cake had 5 tiers. Everything was perfect. Everything was excessive. Everything was from Tiffany's world. I felt out of place from the moment I walked in. My dress was simple, nice, but simple. I had bought it at a discount store because I couldn't afford to spend $500 on a dress like the other guests. I did my hair myself. My shoes were already 2 years old, and as I walked among all those elegant people, I felt every stare, every silent judgment, every thought that said, "She doesn't belong here." Tiffany's family greeted me with cold courtesy. Her mother shook my hand as if touching something dirty. Her father didn't even look me in the eye. Her brothers ignored me after the obligatory greeting. I was the groom's mother, but to them, I was invisible. Worse than invisible. I was an uncomfortable reminder that Dominic came from a humble background, that he didn't always have money or an important last name. During the ceremony, I sat in the front row alone because I had no one else. My family is small. My friends couldn't afford to come to a wedding like that. So there I was, watching my son marry a woman I barely knew, watching him look at her as if she were his entire universe, and feeling myself turn into nothing. At the reception, they sat me at a table in the back. far from the head table where the newlyweds were, far from Tiffany's family, who occupied the best tables. I shared a table with people who also didn't know anyone, distant cousins of someone, friends of friends, all just as lost as I was in that sea of luxury and appearances. Dominic came over to greet me during the dance. "Mom, you look beautiful." He lied. I knew it wasn't true, but I appreciated the lie because at least it meant he still cared about my feelings. We danced one song. He led me onto the floor and I tried not to cry. I tried not to think that this was the beginning of the end, that after today my son wouldn't be just mine anymore, that he wouldn't need me as he did before. "Thank you for everything, Mom, for giving me the life you gave me, for preparing me for this moment." He whispered in my ear as we danced, and I nodded because I couldn't speak, because if I opened my mouth, I would cry. I would beg him not to forget me, not to let her change him, to remember where he came from. But I didn't say anything. I just danced with my son. I just enjoyed those 3 minutes that would probably be the last time he would see me as someone important in his life. After the wedding, everything accelerated. Dominic and Tiffany moved in together into a house she bought, an enormous house in an upscale suburban neighborhood where every property was worth over $500,000. I went to visit them a week after they returned from their honeymoon. I brought a gift, a simple but beautiful dinner set. It was what I could afford, what my budget allowed. Tiffany opened the gift in front of me, looked at the plates, turned them over to see the brand, and then smiled. That smile I was beginning to know. That smile that didn't reach her eyes. "How lovely, Lena. Thank you. Although we already have dinnerware, we can use this for when we eat something casual, something simple." She left the box on the counter as if it were trash that needed to be thrown away later. Dominic didn't say anything. He didn't defend my gift. He didn't tell his wife to be kinder. He just looked away, uncomfortable, ashamed, and I understood at that moment that I couldn't count on him anymore, that she already had more power over him than I did. The following months were a process of slow disappearance. Every time I called, Dominic was busy. Every time I suggested visiting them, there was an engagement, a dinner, a trip, a meeting, always something that was more important than spending time with his mother. And when they finally invited me, Tiffany was there, controlling the conversation, interrupting when I spoke, correcting things I said. "Dominic, your mother said you put the tomato first, but you actually put it in last." Small corrections, small humiliations designed to make me feel foolish, to make me feel like I didn't know anything, that she knew more, that she was better. And the worst part is that Dominic let it happen. He laughed, he nodded, he agreed with her. His mother who raised him, his mother who sacrificed everything for him, his mother who worked until she broke so he could have an education. That mother was now less important than the opinion of his rich wife. One day, I visited them without warning. It was a mistake. I knew it the moment Tiffany opened the door, and I saw pure annoyance, almost disgust. "Lena, we didn't know you were coming." She didn't say, "Come in." She didn't say, "What a surprise." She just stood there blocking the door as if I were a persistent salesperson who had called at the wrong time. "I just wanted to see Dominic. I haven't seen him in 3 weeks." My voice came out small, pleading. I hated how I sounded. I hated having become someone who had to beg to see her own son. "He's working. He has an important video call meeting. He can't be interrupted." Tiffany was already closing the door. I put my foot down to stop her. A desperate gesture, a pathetic gesture. But I needed to see my son. I needed to hear his voice. I needed to feel that I still mattered to someone. "Just a moment, please," I told her, practically begging, and she sighed. That long sigh that says, "You're annoying." That sigh that makes you feel like you are a burden, a problem, something that must be tolerated. "Wait here." She wouldn't let me in. She made me stand on the porch like a stranger, as if after carrying Dominic in my womb for 9 months, after raising him alone for 25 years, I didn't have the right to enter his house. I waited for 15 minutes, standing there, feeling the neighbors pass by and look at me, an older woman standing on an elegant porch as if she were begging for charity. That's what I must have looked like. That's what they made me feel like I was. Finally, Dominic came out. He had his phone in his hand, his face tense. "Mom, you can't just show up like this without calling. I'm working." He didn't even hug me, didn't even smile at me. He just scolded me as if I were a child who had done something wrong. "I just wanted to see you, my love. It's been so long since we talked." I tried to touch his arm, but he pulled away. A small, almost imperceptible movement, but I felt it like a punch. "I'll call you later, Mom. I can't right now." And he closed the door. No kiss, no hug, nothing. He just closed the door and left me standing there, feeling like I had just lost my son forever. I walked to the bus stop with tears in my eyes. I cried all the way back home. I cried on the bus full of people who pretended not to see me. I cried in my empty apartment. I cried until I had no more tears left. And then I realized something. Tiffany hadn't just married my son. She had conquered him. She had changed him. She had turned him into someone I no longer recognized, someone capable of shutting the door in his own mother's face. The months that followed were the most difficult of my life, worse even than when Dominic's father left us, worse than the sleepless nights working, worse than the years of poverty and sacrifice, because this time the pain came from my own son, and that pain is beyond compare. I tried to talk to him. I tried to make him see what was happening. I called him, and he was always in a hurry. "Mom, I'm in a meeting." "Mom, I'm heading out to dinner." "Mom, Tiffany is waiting for me." Always an excuse, always something more important than listening to his mother. One afternoon, I finally managed to get him to come to my apartment. I told him I needed to talk to him about something important. He arrived, but he had that look of annoyance, that expression that says, "I have better things to do, but I came because it's my obligation." He sat on the edge of the sofa, didn't even take off his jacket, ready to leave at any moment. "Dominic, I feel like I'm losing you." I was direct, no beating around the bush, because I no longer had time to tread carefully. "I barely see you anymore. We barely talk. And when we are together, I feel like you're not really with me, that your head is somewhere else. With her." His face changed. It hardened, defensive. "Mom, don't start. Tiffany has nothing to do with this." His voice was irritated, as if I had said something offensive, as if mentioning his wife were a crime. "I didn't say it's her fault. I'm just saying that since you got married, everything changed. You changed." I tried to stay calm. I tried not to sound accusatory, but it was difficult, because every word I said was true, and he knew it. "I grew up, Mom. That's what happens. People grow up, people change. I can't keep being your little boy forever. Now I have a wife, I have responsibilities, I have a life." His words were like blows, each one designed to hurt me, to make me feel like I was the problem, that I was the one who didn't understand. "I'm not asking you to be my little boy. I'm just asking you to include me in your life, not to treat me like a stranger, as if I weren't the person who gave up everything for you." My voice broke. I hated showing weakness, but I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't pretend everything was okay. "You're so dramatic, always exaggerating everything. Tiffany is right. You are too intense, too demanding." He stood up. He was already leaving. He had decided this conversation was over, and I couldn't do anything to stop him. "Tiffany said that about me?" It wasn't a question. It was a confirmation that she spoke badly of me, that she filled him with venom against his own mother, and he let her. Worse, he believed her. Dominic didn't answer. He just looked at me with those eyes I no longer recognized, those eyes where there used to be love, and now there was only discomfort, annoyance. "I need to go, Mom. Tiffany is waiting for me to go out to dinner with her parents." And he left, leaving me there with a broken heart and 1,000 unanswered questions. After that conversation, I stopped insisting. I stopped calling him so much. I stopped suggesting plans because every rejection hurt more than the last. Every excuse was like a door closing, and I was tired of hitting closed doors. But the silence was worse, Not hearing from him, not hearing his voice, watching the weeks go by without a call, without a text, without anything. It was like watching him die slowly, like losing him little by little and being unable to do anything to prevent it. One night, I dared to write him a simple, direct text. "Dominic, I miss you. Can we meet up?" I sent it and stared at the phone, waiting for his reply. An hour passed, then 2 hours, 3 hours. Nothing. He left it on read and didn't answer. My own son ignored me as if I didn't exist. 2 days later, he finally replied, "Sorry, Mom, I've been busy. Maybe next month we can see each other." Next month. As if I were a dental appointment that could be rescheduled. As if seeing me were an annoying obligation that had to be met eventually, but without haste. I tried to fill my time with other things. I started going to church more often. I became friends with Yvette Jackson, a woman my age who was also alone. She understood. She also had children who had moved away, who visited her once a year if she was lucky. We got together for coffee to talk about our lives, our sorrows. It was small comfort, but comfort nonetheless. But nothing filled the void Dominic had left. Nothing healed the pain of knowing that the son I gave everything to was now treating me as if I were a nuisance in his perfect life. Months passed, and the visits became rarer and rarer. When they finally invited me to their house, everything was awkward. Tiffany treated me with that fake kindness that is worse than direct abuse. She offered me coffee in expensive cups. She asked me how I was in a sweet voice but with empty eyes, and I played the game. I smiled. I said everything was fine. I pretended not to notice her subtle digs, her poisoned comments disguised as concern. "Lena, you look tired. Are you sleeping well? You should take better care of yourself at your age," she would say, while serving me tea in fine porcelain, as if she cared, as if she were genuinely worried about my well-being. But I saw the truth in her eyes. She just wanted me to look bad, to feel bad, to know that I didn't belong in her world. And Dominic sat there, silent, letting it happen. Sometimes he even chuckled when she said something especially hurtful, like when she mentioned that I should update my wardrobe because the clothes I wore were so old-fashioned. He laughed. My own son laughed at his mother's clothes, the same mother who wore old clothes for years so he could have a new uniform for school. Tiffany began subtly comparing us at first. "My mother traveled to Europe last month. It was wonderful. Have you traveled, Lena?" She knew perfectly well that I had never left the country, that I barely had enough money to pay my rent, but she needed to rub it in. She needed me to know that she came from a better world, that her family was superior, that I was less. One day I came to their house and found that all the photographs had been changed. Before, there were a few photos of Dominic as a child, photos I had given them, photos of the two of us, of our life together. But now there were only photos of the two of them, their wedding, their trips, their perfect life where I didn't exist. They had erased my history with my son. They had erased our past as if those years had never happened. "Where are the photos that were here?" I asked, trying to sound casual, trying not to let them see how I was dying inside. "Oh, those? We put them away. Tiffany renovated the decor. Everything is more modern now, more elegant." Dominic didn't even look at me when he said it. He was checking his phone, as if this were an unimportant conversation, as if he hadn't just told me he had put away all the proof that I was ever important in his life. Every visit was a new humiliation. Every encounter a new way to make me feel small, insignificant, invisible. And the worst part is that Dominic didn't just allow it. He participated. He had become his own wife's accomplice in the task of destroying his mother. The invitations became even more spaced out, and when they arrived, they always came with conditions. "Come to dinner, Mom, but not too late because we have plans afterward. Come on Sunday, but only for 2 hours because we're going out. Come, but don't bring food because Tiffany already cooked. Come, but don't talk about certain topics because they make Tiffany uncomfortable. Come, but basically, don't be you. Don't exist. just show up and disappear without a trace. I tried to talk to Dominic one last time over the phone because he wouldn't even meet me in person anymore. Dominic, I know Tiffany doesn't want me around, and I understand she's your wife and your priority now, but I am your mother. That doesn't change. That shouldn't ever change. Mom, enough. You're obsessed. Tiffany doesn't have anything against you. You're the one who always looks for problems, who always makes drama. His voice sounded tired, fed up, as if I were a spoiled child who didn't understand reason, as if all of this were a product of my imagination, of my need to create conflicts where there were none. I'm not looking for problems. I just want you to treat me like your mother, to include me in your life, not to make me feel like I'm a bother. Tears started to fall. My voice was shaking. I no longer cared about sounding desperate. I was desperate. I can't keep having this conversation. It's always the same with you, always the victim, always suffering. You need to mature, Mom. You need to understand that you're not the center of my world anymore. And he hung up. My son hung up the phone on me while I was crying, while I was begging him for a little love, a little consideration. I sat in my living room with the phone in my hand, feeling like I had lost the last battle, that there was nothing left to do, that my son was gone, that the boy I raised with so much love had become a stranger, someone capable of hurting me without remorse, without guilt, without anything. The truth came to me in the most unexpected way. One Tuesday afternoon, I had gone to the bank to collect my Social Security benefits when I saw Tiffany leaving an elegant downtown cafe. She wasn't alone. She was with a young, well-dressed man, and the way they talked wasn't the way you talk to a friend. It was intimate, complicit, suspicious. I hid behind a traffic light pole. I didn't want her to see me. I didn't want to have to greet her and pretend everything was okay, but I also couldn't stop watching. There was something about that scene that unnerved me, something that told me I needed to pay attention. The man handed her a folder. Tiffany opened it, checked some papers, nodded, and then took an envelope from her purse and gave it to him. It was quick, discreet, but I saw it. I saw the exchange. I saw her look around before doing it, as if she didn't want anyone to see her. And then I knew something wasn't right, that whatever was going on wasn't legal, or at least it wasn't honest. I stood there for several minutes after they both left, trying to process what I had seen, trying to find an innocent explanation. Maybe he was a lawyer, maybe they were work papers. Maybe I was seeing things that weren't there because I was already biased against her. But something inside me said no. That this was important, that I had to investigate, that I had finally found a clue to who Tiffany Vance really was. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept going over what I had seen, the envelope, the folder, the way Tiffany nervously looked around. And then I made a decision that would change everything. I was going to find out what she was hiding. I was going to find the truth, even if it hurt. Even if it destroyed what little was left of my relationship with Dominic. I called Yvette the next day. Yvette, I need your help. I told her what I had seen. She listened in silence, and when I finished, she sighed. Lena, be careful. Getting involved in this could be dangerous. But I had already decided. There was no turning back. Yvette had a nephew who worked in private investigations. Nothing major, small cases, infidelities, minor fraud. But he knew how to get information, how to follow leads, how to find what others wanted to hide. I asked Yvette to put me in touch with him. Marcus Wells, that was his name. A man in his 40s, serious, professional. We met at a coffee shop far from the neighborhood where Dominic lived. I didn't want to risk anyone seeing us. I told him everything about the man, the folder, the envelope, and I also told him about how Tiffany had entered my son's life, how she had distanced him from me, how everything had changed since she appeared. Mrs. Calhoun, I understand your situation, but I need you to understand that this can take time and it can cost money. Investigating isn't cheap. Marcus was honest from the start. He told me he would need at least $1,000 to start, to follow her, to check public records, to see if there was anything shady in her past. $1,000 was almost all the savings I had. It was my emergency fund, the money I kept in case I got sick, in case I had to move, in case something serious happened. But at that moment, I knew there was nothing more serious than losing my son without a fight, that if I didn't do this, I would regret it for the rest of my life. I gave him the money, all of it, and Marcus began his work. He told me he would call me in 2 weeks, that I shouldn't try to contact Tiffany or Dominic in the meantime, that I should act normal, that I shouldn't raise suspicion. They were the 2 longest weeks of my life. Every day I woke up wondering if I had done the right thing, if this wouldn't turn me into the villain of the story, the meddling mother-in-law who couldn't let her son live his life. But then I remembered Dominic's face, how he had changed, how he treated me, and I knew that something external was influencing him, that my son hadn't become this way on his own, that there was someone behind it, and that someone was Tiffany. Marcus's call came on a Thursday afternoon. "Mrs. Calhoun, we need to talk. I found something." His voice sounded serious, even worried. We agreed to meet that same night at the same coffee shop. When I arrived, Marcus was already there. He had a folder on the table, thicker than I expected. It looked full of papers, documents, proof. My heart was beating so hard I thought it would jump out of my chest. "Mrs. Calhoun, what I found is serious. Very serious." He started without preamble. "Tiffany Vance has been manipulating your son from the start, and not just emotionally, financially too." He opened the folder and began to show me documents, contracts, bank statements, printed conversations. Tiffany convinced Dominic 2 years ago to put all his savings into investments she supposedly managed. She promised to double his money in a year. He trusted her. He gave her everything, more than $100,000 he had saved over years of work. Marcus pointed to the papers as he spoke, the numbers, the accounts, everything right there, black on white. "And what happened to that money?" I asked, though I already feared the answer. I already knew nothing good could come of this. It disappeared. Or rather, she moved it to accounts in her name, to real investments, but ones for which only she is the beneficiary. Dominic put the money in, but she's the sole owner. If they divorce tomorrow, he won't see a dime of it back. Marcus moved to another document. "This is the contract he signed. It's written in a way that makes it look like they're both partners, but if you read the fine print, everything goes to her." I felt the floor move beneath me. My son. My son had been scammed by the woman who claimed to love him, the woman he married. And worse, he had no idea. He trusted her blindly. He had given her everything, and she had taken it without remorse. "There's more," Marcus continued. "I found messages between Tiffany and her mother from before the wedding, talking about how Dominic was the perfect candidate. Young, with a good salary, and no family to interfere much. Those were her words. No family to interfere. And then there are more recent messages where she talks about you, Mrs. Calhoun." "What do they say?" My voice came out as a whisper. I was trembling. My whole body was shaking. Marcus showed me the screenshots. WhatsApp conversations between Tiffany and her mother, between Tiffany and her friends, all talking about me, about the old lady, about the mother-in-law who doesn't know her place, about how she needed to distance Dominic from me because I was an obstacle to her plans. I almost have him where I want him. All that's left is for him to cut ties with the mother. He's too dependent on her, but I'm working on it. Little by little, I'm convincing him she's toxic, that she's manipulative, that he needs to step away to be happy. That message was from 6 months ago, 6 months in which Tiffany had systematically poisoned my son against me. Another message read, "The old lady came today without warning. I had to invent that Dominic was busy. She can't keep showing up like that. I need him to set clearer boundaries. Maybe if I orchestrate a situation where she looks bad in front of everyone, he'll finally understand that he has to choose, her or me, and obviously he'll choose me." Tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. I read message after message, seeing how this woman had planned every step, every humiliation, every moment of pain. Everything had been calculated. Everything had been part of a plan to destroy my relationship with my son and take his money. "I also found this," Marcus said, pulling out more papers. "Tiffany is in debt, heavily in debt. Her family isn't as rich as they pretend. The father has been bankrupt for 3 years. He lost his business. The house they live in is mortgaged to the hilt. All the money they have is borrowed. Appearances, pure smoke. And Tiffany needed to marry someone who could maintain that lifestyle, someone who had money or who could get it. And she found Dominic. He showed bank statements from the Vance family, debts with banks, with lenders, with credit cards, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And meanwhile, they continued to keep up appearances, continued living in their big house, continued buying expensive clothes, continued traveling, all with money they didn't have, all with loans they couldn't repay. And now Tiffany was doing the same with my son's money, spending it, investing it in her name, making sure that when everything collapsed, she would be protected and Dominic would be left with nothing. "Does Dominic know any of this?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. Marcus shook his head. He has no idea. She shows him fake account statements. She tells him the investments are going well, that they're making money. But the truth is that every month she takes money from those accounts to pay her family's debts, to maintain the illusion of wealth. And Dominic works harder and harder, thinking he's building a future, without knowing that future is being stolen every day. I closed my eyes. I tried to breathe. I tried to process everything I had just discovered. My son was being manipulated, scammed, deliberately distanced from me, and all for money, for the damn money and appearances. What do I do with this, Marcus? How do I tell my son that the woman he loves is a liar? How do I show him this without him thinking I'm making things up because I don't like his wife? That's the problem, Mrs. Calhoun. Tiffany has done a perfect job. She has planted in Dominic's mind that you are the problem, that you are controlling, jealous, manipulative. So if you show up with this proof, there's a high possibility he won't believe you, that he'll think you paid to fabricate evidence, that you're so desperate to separate him from Tiffany that you're capable of lying. I spent days looking at those documents. I read them over and over as if they might change, as if I might discover that it was all a mistake, that Marcus had been wrong, that Tiffany wasn't really a manipulator who had planned everything from the start. But no. The papers kept saying the same thing. The truth remained the same, raw, painful, undeniable. I stored everything in a shoebox at the back of my closet. I couldn't leave them in plain sight. Every time I saw them, my stomach churned. I wanted to call Dominic and scream the truth at him, to go to his house and put the documents in his face, to force him to see what I saw. But I knew I couldn't do it that way. Tiffany had done her job too well. She had turned me into the enemy, the toxic mother he had to distrust. Yvette came to visit me often during those days. She brought me food because I didn't feel like cooking. She sat with me in silence when I didn't want to talk, and when I finally spoke, she just listened. She didn't judge. She didn't tell me what I should do. She was just there, and that was more than my own son was doing for me. You have to be smart, Lena. You have to think carefully about how to use this, because you'll only get one shot. If you do it wrong, Dominic will never believe you, and you'll lose him forever. Yvette's words echoed in my head all the time. She was right. I couldn't mess up. I couldn't let emotions dominate me. I had to be cold, calculating, like Tiffany. I started observing, paying attention to every detail. Every time Dominic mentioned something about their life, I wrote it down. Dates, names, places, financial decisions Tiffany had suggested, trips they had taken, big purchases, everything. I was building a map, a timeline that showed the pattern, the systematic way Tiffany had taken control. I also started saving every message Dominic sent me, every conversation where he repeated things Tiffany had clearly told him. "Mom, you need to understand you can't come whenever you want. Mom, Tiffany feels uncomfortable when you criticize our decisions. Mom, you have to respect that I have my own family now." Words that didn't sound like my son's. Words that had Tiffany's poison hidden behind them. Marcus called me 2 weeks later. "I have more information. Tiffany is planning something." We met again, this time at a more discreet park, less chance of anyone seeing us together. "Tiffany is going to ask Dominic to buy a new house, bigger, more expensive. She already found one. It's worth $800,000. She's going to tell him it's an investment, that the value will go up, that it's the perfect time." Marcus showed me an email she had sent to a realtor 2 days earlier. "My husband has great credit and excellent income. We're ready to make an offer." Dominic doesn't have $800,000. He barely had enough to buy the one he lives in now, I said, confused, not understanding how Tiffany planned to do this. "I know, but she's going to convince him to take out a massive loan, to use all the credit he has. And when they get that house, she's going to make sure they put it in both their names, but with a special clause. If they divorce, the house goes to her because she's going to claim her family put up the down payment, which is a lie, but she's going to falsify documents to prove it." Marcus knew things that scared me, things that made me realize how deep Tiffany's plan went. "That's fraud. That's illegal." My voice was shaking, not from fear, but from rage, from helplessness, from seeing how this woman was destroying my son, and I couldn't do anything to stop her. "It is, but it's very difficult to prove if Dominic signs voluntarily, if he accepts everything without reading, without questioning, which is exactly what Tiffany has been training him to do these 3 years. To trust her blindly, not to doubt, not to ask for second opinions, just to sign where she tells him." Marcus put the papers away. "Mrs. Calhoun, if you're going to do something, it has to be soon, before he signs for that house, because if he does, he'll be financially tied to Tiffany for decades, and getting out of that will be nearly impossible." That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on my bed with the box of documents on my lap, thinking, planning, trying to find the perfect way to reveal the truth. It had to be in public. It had to be in front of witnesses. It had to be at a moment where Tiffany couldn't escape, where she couldn't twist the story, where she couldn't play the victim. And then I remembered the dinner where I was supposed to apologize, where Dominic had invited his rich friends, Tiffany's associates, the people who mattered in their new world of appearances. That was my opportunity. That was the perfect moment. I called Marcus. "It's Saturday at 8 o'clock. I need you to arrive at 8:30 when everyone is already there, when they can't cancel or escape." I gave him the address. I repeated the plan. He confirmed that he would be there with everything, every document, every piece of evidence, every message. The days leading up to the dinner, I spent preparing, rehearsing in my head what I was going to say, how I was going to say it. It had to be perfect. It had to be clear, direct, without emotions that would betray me, without tears that would make me look weak, without rage that would make me look like the bitter mother-in-law. Just facts, just truth, just justice. I tried on 3 different dresses. I wanted to look dignified, respectable. I didn't want anyone to be able to say I was the poor mother who was envious of her son's life. I chose a gray dress, simple yet elegant. I did my hair, applied light makeup. When I looked in the mirror, I saw a different woman, a woman who would no longer beg, a woman who would no longer humiliate herself, a woman who was going to fight. Yvette came to see me the night before the dinner. "Are you ready?" she asked me. I nodded. "I'm ready. For the first time in a long time, I'm ready." She hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. "Be careful, Lena. Whatever happens tomorrow, be careful and don't regret it. Whatever you do, don't regret it." I won't regret it. I've spent too much time regretting not having acted sooner, for letting Tiffany do whatever she wanted, for accepting the crumbs of attention Dominic gave me. No more. Tomorrow, everything ends. I either get my son back or I lose him forever, but at least I'm going to fight. Saturday arrived. I woke up early, even though the dinner was in the evening. I showered, got ready calmly, put on the gray dress, did my makeup, looked in the mirror, and for the first time in months, I recognized myself. I wasn't the broken woman I had been. I wasn't the pleading mother begging for attention. I was Lena Calhoun, the woman who raised a son alone, the woman who worked until exhaustion, the woman who deserved respect and who was going to demand it. I took a taxi to Dominic's house. I arrived exactly at 8 o'clock and rang the doorbell. My heart was beating hard, but my hands weren't shaking. I was ready, more ready than I had been for anything in my life. Tiffany opened the door. She wore a black dress that probably cost $1,000, sparkling jewelry, perfect makeup, a fake smile. "Lena, so glad you came." Her voice dripped with poisonous sweetness, that sweetness she uses when there are witnesses, when she has to pretend she's the perfect daughter-in-law. I walked in. The house was full of people, elegant, well-dressed couples with wine glasses in their hands, conversing in small groups. The smell of expensive food filled the air. Everything was perfect. Everything was designed to impress, to show success, to scream, "Look at everything we have!" Dominic approached, gave me a quick kiss on the cheek. "Mom, thanks for coming. Come, I want to introduce you to some friends." He led me from group to group, introducing me as his mother, but without pride, without affection, just as a social obligation. "This is my mom, this is Lena." Empty words, without meaning, without love. I smiled, greeted people, accepted the wine glasses they offered me, though I didn't drink. I just held it. I just played the role expected of me, the grateful mother to be included, the mother who was going to apologize, the mother who had finally learned her place. At 8:20, Tiffany tapped her glass with a knife. The sound drew everyone's attention. Conversations stopped. All faces turned toward her. She smiled, that triumphant smile, that smile that said, "Now for the good part. Now comes the public humiliation." Friends, thank you for being here tonight. Dominic and I wanted to share this special dinner with you, and we also wanted you to witness something important. She looked toward me. Her eyes sparkled with barely contained malice. "Lena, Dominic's mother, has something to say to us, something she needs to say in front of all of you." Everyone looked at me, expectant, curious, some with pity, others with discomfort. No one knew exactly what to expect, but everyone knew it was going to be awkward. I stood up, set my glass on a table, and walked to the center of the living room, right in front of Tiffany and Dominic. "You're right, Tiffany. I have something to say, and I need everyone to listen." My voice came out clear, firm, without a tremor. I looked at my son. I looked at the woman who had destroyed our relationship, and then I smiled, a small, calm smile, the smile of someone who knows she holds all the winning cards. At that moment, the doorbell rang. Marcus had arrived exactly on time, just as we had planned. Tiffany frowned. She wasn't expecting any more guests. Dominic, confused, went to open the door. When he saw Marcus with his briefcase, his face showed surprise. "This is Marcus Wells. He's with me. He's part of what I need to tell you," I said before Dominic could ask. Marcus walked in, gave a brief nod, and stood beside me like an ally, like a witness, like living proof that what I was about to say wasn't a product of my imagination or my desperation. It was real. It was verifiable. It was undeniable. "Tiffany, you asked me to apologize to you, to admit that I've been a bad mother-in-law, that I've interfered, that I've made you feel uncomfortable." I paused. I let the silence stretch. I let everyone pay attention. "And you are right. I should apologize, but not for what you think." Her face changed. The smile disappeared. Something new appeared in her eyes. Worry, fear, perhaps, as if she suddenly realized that this wasn't going according to her plan, that I wasn't the submissive mother she expected, that something had changed. "I owe you an apology for taking so long to figure out who you really are, for letting you manipulate my son for 3 years, for not acting sooner. But that ends today. Today, everyone is going to know the truth about you, Tiffany Vance, about your family, about your intentions, about everything you've been hiding behind that fake smile and that borrowed luxury." The silence in the room was absolute. No one breathed, no one moved. Everyone was watching. Dominic took a step toward me. "Mom, what are you doing?" His voice sounded alarmed, annoyed, but also confused, as if he didn't know whether to stop me or listen. "I'm saving my son. That's what I'm doing." I looked at Marcus. He opened his briefcase. He took out the first folder, the first piece of evidence, the first of many documents that were going to destroy the perfect world Tiffany had built on lies. And we began. Marcus placed the first folder on the dining room table. All the guests gathered around, curious, uncomfortable, unable to look away from what was about to be revealed. Tiffany remained still, too still, like an animal that knows it's trapped, but is still looking for an escape. "Dominic, your wife convinced you 2 years ago to invest all your savings in a fund she supposedly managed, $100,000, your money, the money you earned with your hard work." I began to speak. My voice was steady. Every word was measured, every sentence a direct stab at the heart of the lie. "Mom, what are you talking about?" Dominic tried to interrupt. His face showed confusion, annoyance, but also a flash of fear, as if a part of him already knew that what was coming wasn't going to be pleasant. "Let me finish. Marcus, show them the documents." Marcus opened the folder, pulled out the contracts, the bank statements, the papers that showed every movement of that money. "Here is the contract you signed, Dominic. It says that you and Tiffany are partners, that you both own the investment. But if you read this clause here in the fine print, you'll see that in case of marital dissolution, all assets go to her. Only her." Dominic took the papers. His hands were shaking. He read, he reread. His face changed with every line, from confusion to disbelief, from disbelief to understanding, from understanding to horror. "Tiffany, this is true. Why is this clause here?" His voice sounded broken, as if every word pained him. "Honey, it's just a legal technicality. My lawyer told me it was necessary to protect the investment." Tiffany tried to sound calm, but her voice was trembling. Her hands were moving nervously. She tried to touch Dominic, but he moved away. A small but definitive movement. "Protect the investment or protect yourself," I continued. "Because that money was never in any real investment, Dominic. Look at these bank statements." Marcus showed more papers. "Your money was transferred to Tiffany's personal accounts, and from there it was used to pay debts, her family's debts." The guests were murmuring now. Glances were exchanged. Some took out their phones, probably recording or taking pictures. The scandal was unfolding right in front of them, and everyone wanted their piece of gossip to tell later. "That's a lie! That's completely false!" Tiffany raised her voice. Her face had turned red. She was no longer the elegant hostess. She was a cornered, desperate woman. "Dominic, she's making all of this up. She's jealous. She's always been jealous of what we have." "Jealous?" I repeated the word with bitterness. "Yes, Tiffany, I'm jealous. Jealous of how you stole my son, of how you manipulated him, of how you systematically distanced him from me. Marcus, show them the messages." Marcus pulled out more papers, screenshots of conversations between Tiffany and her mother, between Tiffany and her friends, conversations where she planned every step, where she spoke of me as an obstacle, where she mocked Dominic for trusting her, where she calculated how much money she could bleed him for before he realized. Dominic read the messages in silence. His face lost color with every line. "I almost have him where I want him. The old lady is a problem, but I'm distancing him from her little by little. It's easier than I thought. I just have to cry a little, and he does what I want." Those were Tiffany's words, her own words, impossible to deny. "Tiffany, did you write this?" Dominic showed her the phone. His voice was barely a whisper full of pain, of betrayal, of a world collapsing. "Did you really write this about me? About my mother?" Tiffany didn't answer. She just stared at the papers, searching for an escape, searching for an explanation. But there was none. The evidence was irrefutable. The messages were clear. Everything was there, black on white, undeniable truth. "And there's more," I continued without pity. "Tiffany told everyone that her family is rich, that they have properties, successful businesses, but the truth is they are bankrupt. Her father lost everything 3 years ago. The house they live in is mortgaged. They have debts with 4 different banks, over $200,000 in debt. And your money, Dominic, your money has been paying those debts, maintaining the illusion of wealth, sustaining a lie. Marcus showed the Vance family bank documents, overdue mortgages, unpaid loans, maxed out credit cards. All the money they pretended to have was smoke, debt disguised as success. And now everyone in that room knew it. All the elegant friends, all the business associates, everyone who had believed the facade. One of the guests spoke up, Clara Diaz, a businesswoman who knew Tiffany from a social club. So the trips to Florida, the jewelry, it was all with Dominic's money? Her voice sounded indignant, deceived, because she too had probably believed that Tiffany was at her same social level, that she belonged to that circle of wealth, and now she discovered it was all a lie. Tiffany tried one last time. Dominic, please let me explain. Yes, I made mistakes, but I did it for us, for our future. Your mother is twisting everything. She's making it look worse than it is. Her eyes filled with tears. Real tears this time. Not from manipulation, from desperation, from seeing everything collapse. But Dominic no longer looked at her with love. He looked at her with disgust, with betrayal, with the pain of someone who discovers that everything he believed was a lie. You used me from the beginning. You used me. You distanced me from my mother. You made me believe she was the problem when the problem was you. His voice rose in volume, rage mixed with pain. You needed my money. That's all you needed, and I was so stupid I gave you everything. He turned toward me. His eyes were full of tears. Mom, I didn't know. I had no idea. I thought you were jealous. I thought you couldn't accept that I had grown up. But it was her this whole time. It was her. His voice broke. My son, my boy. Crying in front of everyone, destroyed. I wanted to hug him, but I stopped. Not yet. First, I had to finish what I started. First, I had to make sure Tiffany could never hurt him again. Dominic, she was going to make you sign an $800,000 mortgage next week for a house that was going to be put in her name with fake documents claiming her family put up the down payment. You were going to be in debt for 30 years for a house that would never be yours. Marcus showed the emails, the documents from the realtor, the complete plan, detailed, ready to be executed. All that was missing was Dominic's signature. Just one more week of deception, one more week of lies, and my son would have been financially trapped forever. The guests were no longer trying to hide it. They were talking among themselves, pointing at Tiffany. Some were leaving, others were still taking out their phones. By tomorrow, the whole city would know what had happened that night. Tiffany Vance would be socially destroyed. No one in that circle would ever trust her again. No one would ever welcome her back. Her reputation was finished. Tiffany collapsed. She fell onto the sofa, crying. She no longer tried to defend herself. She no longer tried to explain. She just cried because she knew she had lost, that everything she had worked for, everything she had built on lies, had come tumbling down in one night, at one dinner, with a mother-in-law she had underestimated. Dominic walked toward me. He took my hands. Mom, forgive me. Please forgive me. I was an idiot, blind. I treated you so badly. I pushed you away. I made you feel like you didn't matter, and all because I believed her lies. His words came out choked, between sobs. My son was crying, and I finally let my own tears fall. I hugged him tight, tighter than I had hugged him in 3 years, like I used to hug him when he was a child and the world hurt him, and I was his refuge, his protection, his home. It's okay, my love, it's okay. It's over now. It's all over. I whispered against his head, and I felt him cling to me, as if I were the only solid thing in a world that had turned liquid. The days following that dinner were strange. Dominic showed up at my apartment the next day, early, with his eyes swollen from crying, with an expression I hadn't seen in years, pure vulnerability. He sat on my old sofa and didn't say anything for hours. He just stayed there like when he was a boy and came to seek comfort after a tough day. I didn't try to fill the silence with words. I didn't say, I told you so. I didn't reproach him for the 3 years of pain. I was just present, as I had always been, as I always would be. Because that's what mothers do. They welcome their children when the world breaks them, without judgment, without reproaches, just with open arms. "Mom, how could I have been so blind?" He finally spoke. His voice sounded broken, ashamed. "How did I not see what she was? How did I let her treat you like that? How did I treat you like that?" He covered his face with his hands and cried again, tears of a man who discovers that he built his life on lies. I sat beside him, took his hand, the same hand I held when he took his first steps, the same hand I bandaged when he fell off his bike, the same hand that now trembled with pain and remorse. "She's very good at manipulating, Dominic. She chose you because she knew you were noble, that you trusted, that you loved with all your heart. It's not your fault for believing someone who claimed to love you, but it is my fault for pushing you away, for treating you as if you didn't matter, for making you feel like you were a problem." He looked at me with those eyes that looked so much like mine, the eyes he inherited from me. "Mom, I'll never be able to apologize enough. I'll never be able to repair those 3 years." "I don't need you to repair anything. I just need you never to forget where you came from, who was there when you had nothing, who loved you even when you stopped loving me." My voice was soft, without resentment, because resentment doesn't build bridges, and I needed to get my son back, not punish him. Dominic moved back into a small apartment. He left the house he shared with Tiffany and started divorce proceedings. Marcus helped him with the legal documents, with the lawsuits to recover at least some of the stolen money. It would be a long, painful process, but necessary. Tiffany tried calling him several times. She sent him long messages, letters, begging for another chance, promising she would change, that everything had been a misunderstanding. But Dominic didn't answer. He had learned his lesson. He had seen the truth and there was no going back. The Vance family tried to threaten him with lawsuits, with public scandals, but Marcus had everything documented, every lie, every fraud, every manipulation, and they knew it. They knew that if they took this to court, they would lose more than they had already lost. So they stayed silent, humiliated, socially destroyed. Sundays became ours again. Dominic came to my apartment every week. We ate together, we talked, we laughed sometimes, we cried others, rebuilding what Tiffany had destroyed. Brick by brick, conversation by conversation, hug by hug. One Sunday, 2 months after that dinner, Dominic arrived with a box. "Mom, I found these saved in the garage at the house. Tiffany had hidden them." He opened the box. They were the photographs, all the photographs of our life together, the ones that had disappeared from his house, the ones Tiffany had erased. There was Dominic as a baby, Dominic at his high school graduation, us both smiling at every stage of his life. I'm going to frame these. I'm going to put them up in my new apartment because I'm never going to forget who was there, who loved me when I had nothing, who sacrificed everything so I could have a better life. He looked at me with tears in his eyes. "Forgive me, Mom. Please forgive me." "I already forgave you, my love. The day you were born, I forgave you for everything you could ever do to me in this life." I hugged him and felt that we had finally returned, that my son had come back to me. Not the boy he was, but the man he should always have been, a man who knew the value of loyalty, true love, and family. Months later, I ran into Yvette at the supermarket. She hugged me tightly. "Lena, you look different. You look at peace." And she was right. I was at peace, because I no longer carried the weight of injustice. I no longer lived wondering what I had done wrong. I no longer felt invisible. I had regained my dignity, not by begging, not by pleading, but by defending myself, by showing the truth, by refusing to be the silent victim everyone expected me to be. And in doing so, I didn't just save myself, I saved my son. Dominic now calls me 3 times a week. He visits me every Sunday. He includes me in his life, not as an obligation, but as a choice, as someone who wants to be there, who values my presence, who understands what he lost during those 3 dark years. Sometimes he asks me how I could forgive him so easily, how I could welcome him back without reproach, without making him pay for the pain he caused. And I tell him the truth, because a mother's love isn't conditional love. It's not a love that keeps score. It's a love that forgives, that waits, that never gives up. But I also tell him that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, that the scars are still there, invisible but real, and that he will have to live with the knowledge that he hurt the person who loved him the most. That is his burden. That is his lesson, and it is a lesson he needed to learn. One afternoon, while we were drinking coffee in my living room, Dominic told me something I will never forget. "Mom, thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for fighting, because if you hadn't, I would have lost everything. My money, my dignity, and worst of all, I would have lost you, and that would have been the most terrible thing." I smiled. A quiet, serene smile, the smile of someone who fought and won, not with shouting, not with violence, but with truth, with dignity, with the silent strength that only mothers know. I was never going to give up on you, my love. Never. Because you are my life, my purpose, my reason for going on. Today, I am 67 years old. I live in the same small apartment. I wear the same simple clothes. I eat the same simple food. I have no luxuries. I have no wealth. But I have my son. I have his love. I have his respect. I have his presence, and that is worth more than all the diamonds and big houses in the world. Tiffany left the city. I heard she moved back in with her parents, that no one in her social circle ever spoke to her again, that her reputation was destroyed forever. I don't take pleasure in her downfall, but I don't feel pity either. She chose her path. She chose lies, manipulation, and deceit, and choices have consequences. I learned something from all this. I learned that silence isn't always peace, that enduring isn't always love, that sometimes you have to fight, you have to defend yourself, you have to say enough, and you have to do it without fear, without guilt, with the certainty that defending your dignity is never wrong. Mothers don't have to accept abuse from their children just because we love them. We don't have to disappear to make room for their new lives. We don't have to become ghosts of ourselves. We deserve respect. We deserve love. We deserve to be present. And if that respect doesn't come nicely, then you have to claim it with truth, with evidence, with the firmness of someone who knows she is right. Because in the end, the truth always wins. It may take time. It may hurt. It may cost tears and sleepless nights, but it always wins. Today I look out the window of my apartment. I see the sun setting over the city, and I smile because I survived, because I fought, because I recovered what was mine, my son, my dignity, my peace, and no one will ever take it away from me again. I promise that to myself, to all the mothers who stay silent when they should scream, to all the women who disappear when they should shine. Luxury is destroyed, appearances crumble, money runs out, but true love, the kind that asks for nothing in return, the kind that forgives but doesn't forget, the kind that fights when necessary, that love remains, and I am living proof of it. You know, for a long time I thought keeping quiet was the way to keep peace, but silence only feeds those who hurt you. That night I learned something. Standing up for yourself isn't pride, it's dignity. Sometimes love means fighting, not surrendering. If my story tells you anything, let it be this. No one has the right to make you feel small, not even someone you love. Forgive, but never forget your worth. Because when you finally choose truth over fear, life gives you back everything you thought you'd lost, and even more. If you feel the same way and enjoyed my story, show it by liking this video. Let's see how many of us there are. I'm curious, from which city and what time are you listening? Write it in the comments, and if you'd like to support my journey, you can send a small donation. Thank you for listening and sharing your precious time with me. For more life stories like this one, visit my channel and subscribe. I've added 2 new stories on screen that I'm sure you'll love. Click one and start listening right away. With love.